could hear somebody coming up the stairs from the first floor to the second floor. And this was very distinct. This was like bang, 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 coming up the stairs. I still shake to think of it. I was just afraid of everything in that house.
Your heart races and you breathe faster, and it's just like you're scared and there's something there and you want to run from it, but you can't see anything.
I used to be an atheist. To me, there was no doubt there was no God and no heaven. I started to realize that if there's spirits, there has to be a God. What is the point of having spirits? Your body dies and something leaves it. It has to be for something greater.
The haunted house. It's perhaps the dominant symbol of ghostly doings in Western culture. As children, we fear them, and we also seek them out. Hello, I'm Lawrence Chow. Welcome to Ghostly Encounters. Today, we look at haunted houses and how we deal with the belief that dead former tenants sometimes just can't leave home. How would you react if you thought you were living in a haunted house? Would you plug your ears and turn up the radio? Would you pack up and leave? Or would you welcome the spirits sharing the house with you? Psychologists say your reaction will have everything to do with who you are and where you are in your life. When Geri Little was a young Toronto teenager, she most definitely did not want to see a ghost.
My mom and my sister, who was about 3 at the time, my dad and I moved into this old house on Roehampton. The way the rooms were laid out where it's very strange. My bedroom, I could look up the hall and see the dining room, living room area. And the kitchen would have been on the same wall as my bedroom, and also the bathroom. When my mom was having a bath, I could hear her splashing. And then all of a sudden I could hear cupboard doors opening and closing, like loudly, very loudly. And there was nobody else in the house but the 3 of us. And I knew my sister was still in her bed. I started thinking, well, Mom's out of the tub. And then I realized, no, I could still hear her splashing, and I could still hear the cupboard doors banging. And I happened to look up the hall, and I could see the dining room table. The one chair I could see was to the left, and it was just like somebody was dragging it, pulled it out, and moved it around the table as if they were going to put it in the one side, and then just sort of started to drag it back a bit. It was just unbelievable. When Mom came out, I told her what I'd seen, and not long after that, my dad got us out of there. As long as it was daylight, it was comfortable. At night, I guess that's when it started, pulling the covers over my head and sort of peeking out if I heard a noise or something, hoping you didn't see anything. Could somebody be standing there? I don't want to see it. The next experience was after I was married and had a little baby. It was on Montgomery Avenue in the same area as the other house in Roehampton. My husband, my little boy, and myself, the baby wasn't even a year old at the time. My mom used to come down and look after my son for me. And I'd phoned her from work in the afternoon to find out how things were going. And I was talking away to her, and then all of a sudden I felt her cut out on me, like I knew she wasn't concentrating on what I was saying. And I said, Mom, what's wrong? And she said, there's somebody in your basement. She said that I hear them coming up the stairs. I said, Mom, where's Chris? And she said, he's asleep upstairs. So I started thinking, what are the chances of her running upstairs and grabbing Chris and getting out safely? Not far away was the police station then. And I said, Mom, go out in the street and start screaming. Just start screaming for the police to come. And I called back and I said, what happened? What's going on? And she said, I went outside And I checked all the basement windows. They weren't pried open or broken or anything, so she went down in the basement. I would have never have had the nerve to do that, but she went down into the basement, and there was nobody there. After a while, my dad took quite ill, and my mom couldn't come and look after the baby anymore, so my mother-in-law stepped in. I asked her if she experienced it, but I had asked her while we were still living there, and she said, no, that's foolishness. We were out about 2 years, and I talked to her about it again. She said, yeah, a couple of times, the same thing as my mom, and she'd hear somebody walking around in the basement. One day, this is the part I really don't like to talk about, but I was in the bathtub, and there was an air vent or duct or whatever. It was a huge one because it was an old house, and it was right up my ear. And I'm not sure if it was the wind. I still want to tell myself it was the wind. But I got this sound like a long, drawn-out whisper, and I couldn't make out what it was. But I could hear words trying to be formed. I called my husband, and I said, did you say something to me? Knowing he hadn't, but he said no. So you never saw anybody get out of a tub so quick and down those stairs. And then I'd hear, especially at night, I'd hear walking around downstairs, like just different kind of noises, and a sense that there was somebody else in the house. We belonged to the Big Brother organization. And one night his little brother had come to spend the night, and we were in the master bedroom, which was naturally at the top of the stairs, and I could hear somebody coming up the stairs from the first floor to the second floor, and this was very distinct. This was like bang, bang, bang coming up the stairs. I didn't want that person to reach the top of the stairs. I didn't want to see them. I still shake to think of it. And I woke Geri up, and I said, I think Donnie's up, moving around. You better go check. And he went downstairs, and he came back up. He checked the bedrooms. He said, no, both kids are asleep in bed. So I said, well, somebody was coming up those stairs, whether you want to believe it or not. And he was just putting his head on the pillow when the sound came again. And he sat up in bed. I was glad finally that he had heard it, and he had admitted to hearing it. After that, I was so grateful that this spirit let him hear. Now he had to believe me. That really got to me, that house. The night we were moving out, the night before, I was upstairs like combing my hair. And I try so hard to explain this to people. It was like surround sound, I guess. But a very pleasant voice, but for some reason in this ear, but it was everywhere. But I detected it more in this ear. And it was something to the effect of, now that you're moving out, who's going to move in? And it was a man's voice, very distinct. All I remember was just everything just tensing up on me and yelling down the stairs, hoping my husband would have said something to me, maybe fooling with me or something. But I knew the voice was everywhere in that room, that it wasn't him, but hoping he'd say, yeah, he'd said something, or was it the TV? And he said, no, he hadn't said anything. There again, down the stairs like a flash. I'm so glad to be moving out the next day. It's not the most, I was going to say it's not the most pleasant experience, but it is positive because it's all the proof you need that there's a life after death. My mom passed away 2 years ago, yesterday as a matter of fact, And I pray that she'll appear. And she doesn't. And my aunt tells me it's because she knows deep down, you know, I'd be afraid. After I knew she was gone and the emergency people were working on her and that, I went into the bedrooms up the hall because I didn't want to see her anymore that way. And my son kept coming to me after everybody left and we're waiting for the coroner. And he kept saying, Mom, you got to come and see her. You got to come and see her. And I said, I can't, love. And he said, Mom, she looks beautiful. And I got my nerve up. Sorry. And she did. She looked 30 years younger. Her face had gone like a baby. It was like unbelievable. I don't remember her ever looking so beautiful. If it was just me that saw that, but my son said, Mom, you've got to see her. She looks so good. I know that she went through something crossing over, and I want to know if she did. Why doesn't she appear? Maybe she has no need. But I really wish she would. I have to now see a ghost. I want to say I'm ready. I've heard them. And what more proof do you need? But you have to see it.
Like so many of us, Geri's attitude towards the supernatural was changed by the death of somebody she loved. Grief often makes us wish we could communicate with the dead, whether through a medium or more personally. Geri is now more open to the idea of ghosts and believes she can and did encounter spirits. She's not so afraid now. These days, she even craves a chance to see a ghost firsthand. Geri's stories also reinforce a common belief that spirits can be stuck in a particular place, the haunted house. We live in an age of hospitals and hospices, but not so long ago, many died at home. Sometimes it was natural, but often those deaths were untimely. Maybe that's why the idea of the haunted house is so common, and why some buildings are thought to be a kind of ghostly warehouse.
People will only believe what they can explain in something that is concrete, and you just kind of have to take a big leap and believe in it. They think it's not natural, like there can't be people running around after they've died. Like that can't be true.
What's scary for some is exciting for others. While Geri felt uncomfortable in her house, young Jackie Ray believes a haunted house is a place to be gladly shared with the living and the dead.
My parents had heard about the house through a real estate agent, and we had an appointment arranged. The night before, they wanted to go out and just have a look at it. We knew that we couldn't get inside. That night, when we went home, my mom had a dream that she had seen the house from the inside. She had dreamt that she was sitting at the table signing the papers that would grant us ownership of the house. And when we did go for our viewing the next day, my mom was very surprised to see that everything was as she had seen it in her dream, right down to the pine table where she would sign the papers. I was a bit surprised, I guess, a bit creeped out, but I definitely believed her because I had felt the same way. As soon as we walked into the house, it felt like we were meant to be there, like it was our home. The first occurrence was a night not long after we had moved in, probably a couple weeks after we had been living there, and we were all sound asleep, and my parents both woke up at the exact same time because they heard a young child running down the hallway outside of our bedroom doors. My dad got up to see what was going on, to see why my sisters and I were out of bed, but we were all sound asleep in our beds. We were all sound asleep in our beds, so he just kind of went back to bed and shook his head and didn't know what to think, but went back to sleep. I was a bit scared, I guess, but I guess that's a normal reaction that I would have. I was 10 years old. All I knew about ghosts was that they were scary and they haunt your house and they're out to get you. Shortly afterwards, we were sitting in the kitchen and we had older draw blinds in our 3-bay window in the kitchen, and they snapped up one after the other in a row. We were all kind of scared. We didn't know what to think. It didn't frighten me to the point where I wanted to leave. It just kind of made me aware that there was something else going on. The upstairs hallway, as soon as you go up the stairs about halfway, you start to feel a very heavy, unsettling feeling. My heart starts to race and I feel short of breath, like I'm afraid and I don't want to go any farther. As you come around the corner in the hallway, you can feel someone staring at you. It's like they're staring right through you and almost pushing you, like there's a force pushing you from behind. It's a frightening and unsettling feeling. I tell the spirit just to give me my space, and it's my home, but he's welcome to be there as long as he respects us and leaves us alone. It makes me feel kind of crazy knowing that there's not actually someone physical there, but it definitely lightens the feeling a bit, lightens the atmosphere. It almost feels as if he's kind of pulled back a bit. When I was younger, obviously I didn't really like to be home alone, but I think I've just always kind of accepted it and not been too frightened. It's not as frightening when you're in numbers, when you've got your whole family with you and everyone's experiencing the same thing. I guess it was the summer after we had moved there. I'm not sure what I was doing, but I found a couple of cobblestones just below our front steps. So I got out a shovel, and my mom probably thought I was crazy because I started digging up the front lawn. But she came out and saw that I had actually started to uncover a walkway, and it goes right from our front steps all the way to the roadway. Sometimes if you're in the kitchen, out of the corner of your eye, you'll see somebody walking towards the front door up the walkway from the road. My entire family has seen it. Whenever you go to see who's at the door, if you look out the kitchen window or go to the front door, there's nobody there. Sometimes it'll even go to the extent where you hear someone knock on the door, but again, there's nobody there. We've had anything from hearing footsteps to seeing objects move. We can often hear the stereo volume or the TV volume blast all on its own, turn right up all on its own, and you have to go and actually turn the knob down to adjust the volume. My cats spook at things that aren't there. They run around with their hair standing on end for no reason. My dog sits and growls and barks at things that aren't there. She's always jumping up at the windows in the kitchen as if there's something up there. Whenever the mysterious knock at the door happens, she always runs to see who's there, but of course there isn't anyone there. One day, my parents and my sister were sitting at the kitchen table, and a plastic cup slid about 6 inches across the table in front of them. My sister was walking into the living room and the basement door flew open in her face. A couple of times, our sun porch door has swung open for no reason, and I said, "Oh, come in, close the door behind you," just kind of joking around, and the door closed behind him. And that kind of was a bit shocking, but just kind of shrug it off and keep going. I think that they were previous owners or previous tenants of the home. I don't know, maybe they felt the same way we did. Maybe they felt that it was their home and they were meant to be there, and they've decided they're going to stay. Since spirits are not really something that we can completely understand, you just kind of have to believe. I think it's definitely made me more open and more accepting of different possibilities, different paranormal possibilities. I definitely believe that there are things that we can't explain.
Haunted house stories often highlight a competition between the living and the dead for the dwelling they share. But some believe there's a measure of human control over these spiritual intrusions. Faced with what they think is a haunted house, some people negotiate. Jackie tells the spirit to give her space and respect, that this is her house too. As far as she's concerned, if the ghost complies, it's welcome to stay. On the other hand, Geri and her family moved out. But today, Geri feels some regret that she didn't stay and get to know what she now believes was a friendly spirit. It can be terrifying to think that you have come face to face with a ghost under your own roof. Both Geri and Jackie were comforted because their experiences were corroborated by others. Geri's husband finally heard the ghostly footsteps, and Jackie's family all tell similar tales of ghostly encounters in their century-old home. Well, the next time you see a light flicker or a door move on its own, how will you react? For many of us, we'll never know unless we're lucky or unlucky enough to have our own ghostly encounter.
And all I can do is tell you it happened to me. I don't think that me talking about it here is going to make people believe. But maybe in some small way it'll contribute.
I think people are afraid because they don't understand and because it can't be explained. I think the best thing I could do to help them not be frightened is just to explain the experiences that I've had and how no harm has been done, and maybe that'll kind of help them to understand as well.